Oh man, I'm never getting out of here. What the actual? What's up? Nah, it's cool. I'm just here to do my Gerald interview.
Mike Flanagan's Gerald's Game.
Gerald's Game is definitely a lesser known Stephen King adaptation, but it's definitely one that all fans of his and fans of the horror genre should check out. I had a ton of fun with this film because it's such an intimate film, so emotional. It's not a monster movie, rather it's a character study of our protagonist Jessie in struggling to conquer her own demons. Essentially what we have is a couple, Gerald and Jessie. They travel to a remote cabin to spice up their love life, but it doesn't really go the way they planned. Gerald handcuffs Jessie to a bed, but he ends up having a heart attack and collapses and dies. Now Jessie has to survive and figure out how to get out of this situation. Carla Gugino is amazing in this film. She has a very tough role. She has to pull off so much emotion while having minimal dialogue and basically sitting in the same place for the entirety of the film. She has to show signs of hope while also showing signs of losing her mind. Not an easy task to pull off. And this brings me to what kind of film this is. It's a psychological horror film. Initially, you think this is going to be a survival film until you realize that it's so much deeper than that. And I really love this film. Carla Gugino's character has a very emotionally disturbing past. Her father abused her and manipulated her as a child, which caused her to grow up and go through life feeling trapped. Because of her past, she was never able to really be free, even when she got married. What I mean by this is because of her terrible childhood, and especially a very particularly disturbing memory, her youthful innocence was corrupted, and it sort of paralyzed her in that moment, causing her to be unable to move on. She never really discovered herself as she grew up like most people do. So she, even in her 40s, she's still stuck in this one moment, and it's really, really having a negative effect on her. She is simply trapped in her past. This kind of story is definitely one that we've seen over and over again, but this film is... there's just something about it, I don't know. It tells the story with such subtlety. The suspense is built with hardly any jump scares. It builds by relying on the audience's desire to see her escape. When she finds herself in this horrible situation, she not only survives, but she discovers that her mental fortitude is a lot stronger than she realized. When she finds herself in this situation, she becomes severely dehydrated, coupled with exhaustion due to constantly yelling for help and screaming. And this causes her to hallucinate. These hallucinations include a representation of her and her husband, the former serving as her good conscience trying to pull her out of this situation, while the latter serves as her bad conscience, the doubt that's trying to pull her down. I really like this because it gives Bruce Greenwood a chance to have a purpose in this film past just the 15-minute mark when he dies. Through these hallucinations, we also get to learn about Gerald, or at least how Jessie's mind perceives him. Using Gerald and Jessie as the ones taunting and encouraging Jessie is clever because it prevents the film from becoming boring, such as if it were just Jessie's voice that we heard throughout the entire film. We learn so much through these hallucinations, and it's a very clever way to show exposition or learn about our characters. She never faced her inner demons, so she was never really able to have a sufficiently satisfying marriage. And so she married into a relationship that held her at bay instead of helped her blossom and move on, despite a horrifying past. I mean, this film makes the simplest of acts interesting. For example, just her getting a glass of water, the struggle that Jessie has to face by just reaching above the bedboard to grab the glass of water and then make a makeshift straw in order to drink it. And the fact that she has the strength to not just finish the entire glass of water at once really shows her mental fortitude, and she actually is a very strong character. She just doesn't realize it yet. While subtle, there are hints that Jessie has the ability to survive and escape. I also really love the imagery of this film. It's so vivid, especially when Jessie begins to lose her mind. There's a stray dog that eventually makes its way into the house and begins to chow down on Gerald's corpse. There is a monster out there.
Or is there?
There's no real clear antagonist of this film. I suppose you could say it's Gerald or the monster, but I don't know, it wasn't very clear to me, but I didn't mind. Some might even say it's Jessie herself. This brings me to the deformed, disturbing serial killer that's loose during the events of this film. She witnesses this as she loses her mind. The film toys with the audience's perception of the reality of this character. Sometimes Jessie believes it's real, sometimes she believes it's a representation of death, imminently approaching if she does not get herself out of this situation. This is part of the psychological brilliance of this film. You know, she thinks he's fake for a large chunk of this film, but then she sees bloody footprints on the ground. But at the same time, the audience still thinks, could she just be imagining these footprints? You know, we don't know what's real, and it's so riveting and engrossing. You eventually find out that this character was a serial killer grave robber. To me, this character served as the monster that was always haunting Jessie, until she did the hardest thing, face it head on. Ripped her hands out of the handcuff, disfiguring her hand in the process, and mustering up enough strength to move on. In the end, in facing this killer in court, she is basically facing her father and her husband and all the negative aspects of her former life. And she's able to be content with being alone as a strong woman who has faced her problems and her demons, and she even begins to help others who have dealt with sexual abuse in the past. And this is her triumph, you know, getting out of this strained relationship, facing the problems she never faced as a child, and helping others after she's helped herself. It's a really beautifully told story. A beautiful film of self-realization and self-empowerment disguised as a horror film. I encourage everyone to watch this film. It's available on Netflix. Definitely check it out. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what to review next. I'd be more than appreciative if you did. Have a great day, everybody. I'll see you next time.